make sure that you're including everybody. And I guess the question is, how do you do that? How do you include everybody? Because to me, it feels like you're just opening up a giant can of worms when you do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's a really important can of worms. So. I want to make sure that people understand why it's important. Not only, I guess it's easy to just be like, not my problem, but I think it's important for brands specifically. So if it is important for brands, then it's important for us.
I agree. And I've heard, so many people who have not just I've talked to, but even posted on the Facebook groups of, a client who really had a terrible experience with AI where, they were a Black woman and that made them into a white person, or, vice versa, or, a man being turned into a woman or a woman being turned into a man. There's a lot of, I guess there's just not a lot of parameters on the AI side. So it's kind of up to us to build those parameters,
Yeah, exactly. So what I've noticed is like kind of exactly what you're saying. Like I guess to back up, there's just so many different types of people. One of the ones that I don't think you mentioned was bald people.
Oh yeah.
And it's like when
There's tons
you
I didn't mention.
yeah, exactly. But that's one that like I just thought of in my head. But it's like there are so many people out there that, they're people. They want to use our booth, but they want to look like themselves in a superhero thing or race car or whatever it ends up being. And if that person has big braids and there's no one in there with big braids, it doesn't look like them. So it is really important to make sure that you're including everybody. And I guess the question is, how do you do that? How do you include everybody? Because to me, it feels like you're just opening up a giant can of worms when you do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's a really important can of worms. So
I agree. So let's jump into the questions. I still have that echo on your side. Sorry. Um, what inspired MiHi to focus on creating inclusive and diverse experiences through their photo booth activations, or through your photo booth activations?
yeah, I mean, it was really just through experience. We didn't realize that it was an issue until we had our own event, our Feel Famous event, and there was diversity there. And obviously we had a group of male and female, different ethnicities and skin tones and stuff, but like we didn't have body types in there. We didn't have hairstyles in there. We didn't have all of the things that make people unique. And with the most popular AI photo booth out there, it's a face swap. And it's a really good face swap, but at the end of the day, if a person's bald and the face swap isn't for a bald person, that person's all of a sudden going to have hair. So we kind of took it upon ourselves to build out a library of what needs to be rendered, to ensure that we're kind of checking all the boxes, or at least as many of the boxes as we can think of today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't had very many AI experiences, at least not on the corporate level, where you're really doing an activation based on, like your Feel Famous event, where high-end people are coming through and, having an expectation and not being able to fulfill that expectation can sometimes feel like a disappointment on both client and, our end as well. I feel like it's more on our end most of the time because they're so understanding. They're like, it's fun. We had a great time. But I'm like, no, it wasn't perfect.
Exactly. I mean, we are supposed to be the experts, so I think it is good to hold ourselves to these really high standards. And I think it's important to ask ourselves these types of difficult questions, especially when it comes to potentially leaving people out and excluding them from not only something that's really fun, but also kind of the new fun, cool thing that everybody wants to be a part of.
Yeah, so true. And people who are often forgotten or marginalized because of the color of their skin or their culture or, religion or whatever, it's like when you do add that extra filter or whatever, and they see themselves, it's an appreciation, you know. So
Exactly. And
yeah,
that's kind of how we word it too. We actually say it's a celebration. We're
Mm,
celebrating diversity.
I love that.
Um, to a brand, they're celebrating all of their audience or all of their different customers or clients. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's so important, and without it, it's detrimental to a brand. But with it, it is just as good as it would have been bad.
Yeah.
There's really no in between anymore. You're either a hero for celebrating this diversity, or you're kind of a villain, I guess, for being insensitive.
Wow, I like that. It is rather black and white. And you can't predict how it's going to be received either. I mean, you can, like you said, we can really talk about these things, at least make it the forefront of our awareness to where, when we are setting up activations, at least if the right person hears this podcast and they take it into consideration and they avoid that situation, that's great.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what steps has MiHi taken to address potential cultural insensitivity and appropriation in their AI powered photo booth features?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, building that library is really important, but the second piece of that is how it's being used. And what I mean by that is with these AI face swaps, a lot of the time you as the guest, you're able to kind of pick a different character that you would like to be, whether just to keep it really simple, maybe you want to be a superhero or, again, a race car driver or a fighter pilot, and you can choose one of those three. And so typically you start there. You choose which character you want to be. And then once you've chosen that, you get another set of options, which is, what do you look like? What do you personally look like? Are you white? Are you black? Are you Mexican? Are you just any of these things? But also, like we're talking about, what type of hair? What's your body type? And so sometimes we've seen, because the guests are using these, they're being curious. They want to see what they would look like as a different ethnicity, or a different body type or something. And so one of the things that we've done is we've kind of tried to help users recognize that that could be seen as insensitive. So from the very beginning, we tell them to please choose an AI avatar that best represents you. And we even say, like, specifically your own skin tone and hair type. We want this experience to celebrate your authentic identity. And most of the people understand it because of kind of, I guess, how we put the emphasis on that. And we're very intentional with how we say it, but some people still don't, and that's fine. And those people might go and try to select something else. And so we'll stop them and we'll say, listen, like, I understand you're trying to explore different looks, but allowing race changing could be perceived as insensitive. So we really encourage you to embrace yourself. And from there, if they want to do it, it's kind of on them at that point. But we haven't had anyone do that. So when you kind of tell them the second time, they're like, "Oh, that makes sense. Thank you so much." So I mean, we're also kind of educating people in this whole process, which I think is really cool. It's just one more benefit to the AI experience, where we're taking normal people and we're making them superheroes, but we're also including everybody. And sometimes when curiosity, I guess, gets the best of us, our team is able to just kind of educate and gently nudge people to remind them that it's potentially offensive, and that knowledge could stick with a lot of people so they can become more sensitive over time as well.
I love that. I mean, like you said, you're educating them at the same time as, I mean, in a way, you're protecting your brand and you're protecting your client's brand at the same time, because, just even though it's a guest in the photo booth, it's like, it reflects on you and it reflects on your client, and, you know, keeping that awareness. And it's just like, for me, I just get really excited when I hear like business ethics, like people tuning into them and actually, you know, wanting to have good ethics and morals within their business. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you. We've definitely had hours and hours of conversations about this, most of which were brainstorming all of the different, I guess, demographics or whatever you'd like to call it, but like all of the different visual looks of people.
Yeah.
And so being able to put your head down and determine, you know, each character needs different genders, different skin tones, different body types, different hairstyles, and they all need to mix as well. You can easily get into hundreds, if not thousands. So it is a lot of extra work, but we have found that that extra work has paid itself off. It's not too much work, and from a financial perspective, it's not too much work, and obviously from a ethical perspective, it's absolutely not too much work. I wish we could do even more, and that's something that we're always looking into is how else can we make this more inclusive? Because when you do see somebody who is not your stereotypical person at a trade show, and they see themselves and they love it, like you kind of see something where their walls are up because they don't think they're going to find themselves in there, and then they're let down and they're so happy. And what better way for a brand to represent themselves than to make everybody feel like that?
I love it. I love it. So I do have a question, because I noticed on SnapPic they have like a filter for, I'm gonna butcher this, de los Muertos, Dia de
Yeah,
los
Dia
Muertos,
de los Muertos.
uh, which is really cool. I mean, I've messed around with that AI filter so much, and I'm just like, oh, it makes me look so beautiful, and I would love to be able to incorporate that at a Dia de los Muertos event. But as a white woman, I don't know how to approach that with with sensitivity. So,
Mm-hmm.
how would you approach something like that?
I mean, you have to remember that you're providing a service for your client. And if that's what the client wants, then having the conversation with them about being sensitive, that's your obligation. And that should be the goal, is making sure that your expertise in this realm is kind of being the guiding piece for your client. You know, getting into cultural appropriation and
Mm.
things like that. I think just asking the question, like, who's going to be at your event, and do you think people would get offended by this, or do you think they'll love it? Also, maybe even just giving them the option not to use the facial, maybe because they put the face paint on and the masks and stuff. So maybe giving them an option where they don't have to do that. It could be as simple as that, where maybe it's just the floral and the decor and all of that
Mm.
in the background, or even some of the attire maybe. And the option is, do you want to wear a face mask or not? Or do you want that painting on?
I like that. It's really just about communicating with the client. However, like if you're going out to do a community event and you're just throwing stuff out there, it really does take, like, it's good to just kind of step back and pause, you know, really, and just think about what it is that you're trying to do as well. Are you trying to make everyone feel included, or did you put any thought into what you're doing, etc.? Just because there's a filter on one of our awesome softwares doesn't mean that we have to just go out and use it, you know, willy-nilly. So
Totally. And that's one thing I try to do, is I try to come up with scenarios in my head, like, what would the most critical person say going to this event? Like, what could be said of me if I were to go to this event, and what's missing maybe? Or what is being represented improperly even. Because if somebody were to be offended by the face painting and you had an option right there that was not face painting, then you could simply say, hey, this is for the people who really want to celebrate it, or this is for the people who identify, best identify this way. We have other options for everyone else.
Okay.
Go ahead and take a look.
Love it. So how do inclusive activations like those offered by MiHi Entertainment enhance networking and relationship building at trade shows and corporate events?
Yeah, I mean, this one, I've kind of brought it up already in this podcast, but it's obvious how, or sorry, not obvious. It's intriguing how simple this is, but how often it's overlooked. And from a business perspective, I'm going to be so blunt with this, just to keep it simple. Imagine if you were potentially going to work with a brand, you were going to buy a product from a brand, and you walk up to this photo booth and you are not in it. So they forgot about you. And there's another brand that's their competitor that didn't necessarily forget about you, maybe because they just never had the opportunity to. But would you think twice about working with them? Some people would say yes. And I say some, I don't know the percentage by any means, but even if it's only 10%, that's still a huge number. And so, if you did represent them and they knew that they were, alternative, or they weren't the norm, and they still felt seen by your brand, chances are you're going to have a lifelong customer, because you feel great. And it's that simple. And some people might say, well, I'd rather be safe than sorry and not use an AI booth, which is totally fine, but now you're not hurting them, but you're also not making them feel so included. And so I really think that not only does being inclusive really help, obviously, but our AI booth is such a wonderful tool to, again, celebrate diversity and celebrate your target audience, or celebrate all of your potential clients. Because if you can celebrate people and make them feel special and make them feel unique, or make them feel famous, you're going to do a lot for your brand. And that's kind of something that I and my team really like to focus on, is taking these things and just, making somebody feel special. Because if you can make someone feel special, like I said, you've just got a lifelong customer.
Yeah, and you do that in more ways than one, which is really cool. Like I'm always bragging on the light up lanyards, the LED lanyards.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. I showed it to a client two weeks ago. She was doing a let me think. It's in San Francisco, and it was like an event for like vintage airline. And I was like, look at this LED, because I had my it was the Feel Famous one, and it wasn't the vintage airline. I showed her the one where it looks like me sitting in a plane, and I look like a vintage stewardess, but like cosmically, because it was more like a space suit kind of looking thing. I don't know if I had it, would be, I'm butchering it, I'll tell you that with my words.
I mean, you're talking to me though, and like I totally know it. I wish I couldn't do a better job describing it though. I like to call it Sexy Jetsons themed. Like,
yes,
it's Sexy Jetsons. It's a mixture. Like, Feel Famous this year was a mixture of like your now I can't even think of it. What is that city in California? Palm Springs.
Oh yeah.
It's like a Palm Springs feeling kind of thing. Retro, Sexy Jetsons, like really, really fun. It's a retro take on something futuristic, which I think
it was so unique and so cool. Oh, there's the dog that I'm house sitting for. He's gonna eat his breakfast.
So cute.
Right, real quick. But yeah, it was so cool, so unique, and I was able to show it to her. And what she was doing was an event for airport marketers, so airlines and airports who market their airports or whatever. And so I was like, well, you are wanting to impress marketers. You're going to want this. And that's when I reached out to you. Unfortunately, she doesn't have enough room for a photo booth. We've already tried to figure it out. She's got so much stuff going on.
Physically enough room?
Physically. It's like this old, it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like what do you call, what is those speakeasies? Like you go in and you go down a bunch of stairs, and she just has too much going on. But
Well, you could always sell her on a roamer. So
that's true.
I would recommend that because
I will
that's what
do
we
that.
do. And we definitely, when people don't have enough space, a roamer kind of works about 70% of the time as an
Yeah.
alternative. Sometimes it's not really about not enough space and it's something else. But we get a lot of salvaged business because of our roamers. So we're happy with them.
That's cool. But yeah, so it's like that. It's my way was kind of to talk to her about it. Was like, if you want to impress your clients, which is a bunch of marketers, you're going to want a photo booth or some kind of activation that impresses them. And she was really highly impressed by that LED badge.
Yeah, they're especially with the rendering, it's so on theme. So
Oh,
it's pretty
so great.
amazing. Yeah, and I mean, obviously AI is just so big right now. Now that everybody can use it, and there's all of this generative AI mostly, and obviously there's apps out there where you can kind of just do it yourself and not even use it at an event. It's really special when you can do it at an event because everybody is kind of on the same team, and we all look similar, but we have our own differences, which is really cool. Um, and it's way easier as a guest to go up and take a photo than it is to like download an app and send 100 pictures of yourself and all of that. So, yeah, I think the AI booth is such a wonderful, powerful marketing tool, really. I mean, that's what my head always is.
So when you are coming up with your face swap ideas and all that, and you're including different colors, different genders, and different features and all the different aesthetics, what is the process for that? How many filters are you using, and are you saving those for the future? Are you reusing them, and what's the process there?
Yeah, I mean, our first process is really kind of getting an understanding of what the client's messaging is. So, what is the theme? What do they want? If they don't have a theme, then we work with them, try to figure something out. A lot of the times, though, it is superhero, which is interesting. I think it is for almost everyone at this point, but everybody can, I guess, be a superhero in their own realm. So we did superhero dentists, which is interesting. But when you figure that piece out, then the next step is really do you want this branded for your brand? If so, send us your brand standards. So we get their colors, we get what type of visuals are in there. Sometimes it's do you not have any hard lines in your brand, or not any straight lines or something like that. And if that's the case, we take all of those subtle things and we really make these AI renderings so representative of their brand that they can't even tell that these renderings were not made for their brand guideline. Like that's how close we get them.
I'm gonna need you to do a course on that, I think. I know that's fun. You're laughing. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I would say the first step is to hire a team that understands it and is big enough to handle it because it's a lot of work. But
Yeah,
we could definitely talk about that sometime. It's
cool.
not, it's obviously doable. Like we're here right now talking about how it's been done. So, that is really the process in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot of back and forth revisions and changes. And then, just once we hone in on that, we get a handful of samples for them that is their theme and is their brand, then we get that final approval, and then we start building out all of the different personalities, all of I'm sure there's a word that I've used 100 times and I'm just not thinking of it today.
Profile, maybe?
Profiles, yeah, something. But we build out everybody. We build out everyone at that point, and it takes a
So
long time.
when you say that it takes a long time, I'm playing out what I think that you're doing in your head. I'm in your head, in my head. Um, what I'm curious to know is, do you have a list of features and things that you're trying to include as you're finding these renderings that you're checking off this list?
A physical
There's
list, I'm not 100% sure. This is kind of in the realm of what my creative director does. But I'm assuming he has like a Word doc list of some sort. Um, because otherwise he would be trying to envision everyone all over again, and that would just be, we've spent as a team of, I would say we had 11 internal staff
wow.
in our boardroom just coming up with a list of ideas. So I feel like it was that many. So we've done that, and I'm sure he's also used AI to help generate some other variations as well. But yeah, I mean, if you want to be consistent, you have to record it and take it out of your mind.
Yeah, I like that. And I love the fact, I mean, just being you saying that, painting the picture of me seeing you and 11 staff members, and they're putting effort, thought, and value to something that um, not a lot of people do, or especially mom and pop style stores who aren't, necessarily as aware, because we're just focused on what's in front of us. I mean, I spent my first 11 years in the photo booth industry in a very predominant white community,
Mm-hmm.
very predominant. I mean, I can literally count the number of events where it wasn't just a ton of white people. So having that in the forefront of my mind constantly, if I were to go to do an activation, because I'm just worried about the things that are in front of me and it's not a part of my awareness, I could easily have made that mistake and not caught something or someone, or like you even said, someone who's bald, you know?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're in an industry that is extremely competitive and
Yeah.
has such a variation in pricing. What I can say about that is if you're watching this, you now should be aware. And if you do things right from this awareness, you're going to be able to command a much higher dollar. And you're going to set yourself apart from everybody else who's, like Anna said, is not aware of this stuff because they're focusing on what's in front of them. If you want to know what separates, the companies that are doing the big business from the ones who are not, this is one of this is a good example for sure.
Yeah. I mean, don't have any other questions. I feel like that was a great spot to stop. And I can give you
So
10
keep
minutes of
on,
your time back.
yeah. So keep on listening for more knowledge to be
Um, yeah.
a
Wow, that was
multi-seven
perfect.
figure company.
Yeah. I love it. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, it's really, again, it's really straightforward. I think making people aware, also getting them to kind of understand how much work is involved. Um,
Yes.
so it doesn't feel like it's too much work. Being able to kind of validate that, I think, is really important.
And
Um,
pricing it. Because it's so easy to say, oh, we offer AI and we're going to charge this, $500. And then, it's like you're charging $500, and then you watch this episode and you're like, oh crap, I got to put in all this time to put on all these profiles now. And then it adds more time and you're making less money. And
exactly. Well, and that's the thing is like we're hand fed or spoon fed these photo booth softwares, and it's so easy to just throw an overlay in there, bring a photo booth to an event, and say that what makes me different is my customer service. Again, we're so competitive now. The barriers to entry are minimal, and this is what makes it different. You have a tool and you're using it to such an in-depth and thorough extent that you're truly making a difference when you're going on site and people are using your booth, it's positively affecting people. That's really powerful versus just buying a booth, asking what software to use, throwing an overlay on, and taking some pictures. There's a huge difference now. So I welcome these things. I love the challenge. I love I love wondering how can we do this? Because if I'm wondering it, a lot of other people probably are, and most people will just kind of skim over it and move on to the next thing. So
amazing. All right.
cool.